Technically True by Tanay Pant. Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of Technically True. My name is Tanay Pant and I'm your host. Today we will take a peek behind the scenes at how talks are selected in actual conferences, learn about what qualities gets a talk selected, and how to write a good talk proposal. Today I'm joined by Kristina Schneider. Kristina organizes CSSconf EU, one of Europe's largest front-end conferences, runs a monthly UX meetup in Berlin, teaches students, and mentors women entering the tech scene. She has warned me, though, that she really dislikes mini golf and can't stand board games. A very warm welcome, Kristina.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for the nice introduction. You already spilled the secret that I don't like mini golf that much. But yeah, as you mentioned, for quite a while, I've been involved with various community projects now. And I guess the thing that interests me most at the moment is bringing together designers and web developers. And especially younger people entering the field. And more and more I'm slipping into mentoring roles, which really interests me at the moment because I'm also learning a lot through that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm next to my day job.
Awesome. So Kristina, I've prepared some rapid fire questions so that we can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Yeah, sounds fun. Let's do it.
So here we go. Meetups or conferences?
Meetups.
Favorite meetup?
I do not want to choose my own, so I'm going to say Berlin JS, which is the local JS meetup in Berlin.
Okay. Your filler word?
This one.
Awesome. Topic that you're the most passionate about?
CSS.
Podium or no podium?
Definitely podium. I need something to hide behind sometimes, and then I start walking around.
Likewise. Favorite tool to prepare your slides?
Probably pen and paper.
Oh, awesome. That's a very unique answer. That's great to hear. Awesome. That was really fun. So, Kristina, How did you first get involved with conferences?
Actually, before I got involved with conferences in an organizing role, I got involved with meetup organization. For over a decade now, I've been working out of a co-working space in Berlin that also runs like a free space for community events. And when I first started out, I wanted to, basically hang out and spend time with people who are passionate about similar topics and who like to nerd out about web development as well. And there just wasn't a lot some years ago. So I started to organize my own meetup called Upfront, which, is for web designers and web developers. And organizing a conference over the years became sort of the next logical step because we wanted to go a bit bigger and have some more time to talk about certain topics in depth and just, celebrate with a bigger community. And kind of in parallel, I've been friends with some of the organizers of CSSconf EU for a long time. So when they started in 2009, I was helping out on the sites a little bit and volunteering here and there. So through that channel, I already had some insights into how you organize a conference, and every year when CSSconf happened, more and more I was involved with little tasks. And so eventually we kind of brought the idea of bringing my design front-end meetup to the next level together with the help and experience from CSSconf EU, and that's how we decided to put on CSSconf EU, which we've now run a few times. And that's how I ended up organizing conferences.
Wonderful. My first involvement in this world of conferences was through the Mozilla Tech Speakers program. So this September, we had a meetup in Amsterdam where some mentors had joined us for very valuable feedback sessions. So Kristina was one of the mentors there, and that's how we got acquainted. And when did you first get involved with CFP committees?
A CFP committee, maybe as a quick explanation for the audience, not sure if everyone is familiar with what that means. So one of the biggest, or really at the core of organizing a conference is selecting the talks, right? That's one of our most challenging tasks, finding the perfect combination of talks. And last year we decided to not stay alone with that task anymore, because until then it was only the organizing team who read all the proposals and made the decision. But very consciously we decided to invite an external jury to, well, mostly to extend our own perspective on how we vote on talks and how we put the final lineup together. So it was kind of the result of some years of learning, and yeah, the hope for creating an even better, more broadly interesting lineup for everyone in the audience by inviting external people to be part of this Call for Papers committee.
Right. That sounds lovely. Could you tell us a bit more also about the CFP selection process and how it works for a conference like CSSconf EU?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I love to speak about it because, again, like every year we learn a little bit and try to make it more efficient, refine it a bit more. And I think with this year, we kind of have a quite saturated process now, which has more or less 4 steps. And well, the first step is that we open an online form, our call for papers or call for presentations, which we leave open for about 8 weeks. And we try to use Twitter, obviously, newsletters, other meetups to spread the word that this call for presentations is open.
Yeah.
And what we ask for is the title, a very short abstract of your talk idea, and some additional information like a link to your GitHub profile or to an existing talk video if you have one. So once that form closes after roughly 8 weeks, we usually have received around 200 proposals for CSSconf EU. And well, then the reading starts. And at this point in time, it's 3 organizers of CSSconf EU and a talk selection committee of, I think we invited 8 people. Not everyone ended up having the time to read all of them. But yeah, so that's the group of people who's reading and voting then on all the proposals. We use a scale between 1 and 10, where 1 would be, not really into this talk. We can't see this work at CSSconf. And 10 would be, yeah, that's an absolute must-have. We love it. Sounds really innovative and interesting. We would love to hear this. And this is one of the most work-intense and time-consuming steps because, well, it's just a lot to read. And one important aspect of that step is that it's completely anonymized. So all we see at this point is the talk title and the talk description, and that's what we make this initial voting decision on. So once we're done with that, we reveal the additional information for each talks, and also we calculate the average vote on each talk. And based on that average vote, we make a cut. And so we usually, depending on where the cut is, because well, many talks share the same average number, we end up with 40, 35 really, really good talks that receive really good average votes. And at our conference, we have 11 to 12 speaking slots. It's like 1 day, 1 stage. So we have to boil down that final selection, so this short list. What we also do at this step is we look at the talks where we had a high deviation in our votes, because that happens sometimes. And then we start a discussion and a conversation. Hey, why did you vote 0 on this talk? And why did another person give that talk 10? Because that happens occasionally, that somebody saw the potential in a talk and others in the group maybe overlooked it. So sometimes we lift up a talk to be part of that shortlist. And then for me, the funnest and most interesting part starts when we have the shortlist, where really only the talks that are really, really good and really definitely qualified to be played at CSSconf are left. We start what we call the actual curation. And curation, well, usually that's 2 to 3 really long meetings with just us 3 core organizers of the conference, where we are trying to find the final perfect combination. So aspects like the novelty and relevance of the topic for the CSS community, of course, are important, like which is really the hot topic for this year, for this moment. But also the talks have to complement each other, right? Like definitely want those super challenging, technically in-depth talks, but we also want a talk that's maybe visually stunning and promises a beautiful presentation, a talk that is entertaining. And also last, but definitely not least, we need this one keynote that's like a very important aspect for CSSconf, that we want to at least have one kind of mind-opening, thought-provoking talk that opens the day and sets the tone and reminds everyone that we're not only here to talk about technical details and learn how to become better developers, but also how to become better contributors in our community. So that's often the hardest talk to find and identify. And this last step of the process, the curation, feels like a big puzzle and sometimes almost impossible to solve. Like, what's the perfect combination out of 40 talks that we would all love to hear? But well, we can only have 11 or 12 in the end. Like every year, there's like lots of anxiety and doubts, and will it be a good combination? Will people like it? Will the speakers deliver what their talk proposals are promising? And like every year, we were really, really happy. So for us, it's been a good process that's been serving us really well. Like every year when we saw it come together in the end on stage during the day, we were really happy with the outcome.
Cool. And other talk proposals that people submitted are anonymized?
Yeah, exactly. So the step where the organizers plus the external committee are reading just the title and the description, that's anonymized. So only at the later step, when we have boiled down after the voting to a shortlist, we de-anonymize and we look at the personal details. That's actually, well, unavoidable. At some point, we have to reach out to the speakers.
Of course.
And also there's plenty of factors that we just have to make sure and have to check before making a decision. Like, is that speaker really qualified to speak with the authority and experience on the topic they are proposing? Also, CSSconf is like a quite large international, also quite expensive conference. And one of the aspects that we want to deliver is inspire people and show them technical excellence and also a certain level of speaker skill on stage. So this is definitely distinct from, for example, Meetup, where it would be more appropriate to have speakers try out their skill, try out a new talk, but we have the stage and the audience with a high expectation of a certain speaking level. Right. And that's something we try to at least get an idea of by looking at, has this person spoken before? Do they show care and excitement on stage? So can we trust them to deliver the topic as well as they did in writing in their proposal? So that's something we try to check by looking at their personal data once we have the shortlist.
Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned that a review committee or a selection committee works on giving voting from 1 to 10 to the papers. So how is this review committee selected? And I ask this because I'm sure a lot of speakers would love to join a committee like this. So what's the best way to get involved with this?
Yeah, definitely. So, well, having a speaking background yourself, of course, might be helpful. We do not have such a formalized process for selecting the people for the committee. Really what happened this year is just that we realized, hey, let's look at us 3 organizers. Right. We are actually all quite similar in terms of age, experience, nationality, also the way how we work in the industry. We're all quite hands-on developer designers, career switches, 2 of us. So we were like, yeah, our perspective is somewhat limited and our audience is luckily much more diverse than that. So we should reflect this better when selecting talks. And so we asked ourselves, okay, who do we know in our community, in our network that might be a good fit and bringing certain aspects that we don't have. So for example, someone who's new to the field has less experience, but also we invited someone who has like a academic computer science background and is teaching in an academic context, and that's an aspect we wanted to have reflected. We invited people at different levels in their career with different, people who are focused differently in their career as well, like some with a more designy background, others with a more hardcore developer background, but also looking at their personal demographic markers. We invited people who are different in terms of age, gender, race, nationality, also native language, because all of this was important to us, that we increase the diversity we have already in our selection committee.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to make sure that there's enough diversity in the conference and as well as in the speaker lineup, I guess.
Absolutely.
So I have prepared a list of talk titles, some bad and some good, or so I think. So how about we do a yay or nay rapid fire to see if they would get past you? Are you game?
Oh yeah, I'm super curious what you prepared. So let's hear it.
Awesome. Here we go. Make web great again.
Nope, I would not call that a good title.
Okay. 13 reasons why you should not use React.
Let me say at CSSconf that also would be a clear nope.
Getting started with WebXR.
Yeah, why not? That's clear and to the point. Might be interesting.
Mastering CSS from zero to hero.
Both the master and the hero in the title rubs me kind of the wrong way. So no.
Okay. Be careful what you consume. The dark side of cookies.
Yeah, I'm sold. Cookies I like.
Why Preact sucks and why you should not use it.
I do not want to hear that at my conference.
And the journey to become a CSS master.
Again, not a friend of the word choice here. Nope.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's quite insightful.
I hope it was.
So, Kristina, is there a structure to how a talk proposal should look like?
Good question. I guess structure is a big word. Looking at the fact that we ask for very short proposals. So this, it's not that we ask for 1 or 2 page long detailed descriptions, but we specifically ask for like a very short, very consistent, to the point abstract. So if somebody can sell me that talk topic in 3 or 4 pointed sentences, that's ideal to me. Because again, if you kind of put yourself in the position of the talk selection committee, imagine you have 200 proposals in front of you and you click through them. Really what you want is something really short and something that is really boiled down to what is this talk about? That's the question you have to answer, right? Like, what do you want to explore? What will you talk about? And maybe give an idea as well about how are you going to talk about it. If you have great visuals to offer, if you're planning to do live coding or something, mention that as well. Like, what will you talk about and how will you deliver it to the audience? And also, if you can give a hint to the why you are talking about it, like, why are you an expert on this particular topic, or why are you passionate about this topic? Like, you don't have to be the expert in the field, but why are you burning to speak about this thing? Like, what makes you want to go up on stage? Because that's something we're always looking for, like somebody who is delivering something they care about. So maybe that's a mini structure, like the what, the how, and the why of your talk. That's what I'm interested in.
That makes sense, yeah. And I also really liked what Joe Nash told us in his workshop in Amsterdam about using a framework like pain, dream, fix, and performance. So essentially, first of all, you address the pain point that people in the industry are facing. You talk about the ideal or the dream situation and what that would be like. Then you introduce a fix and finally tell your audience what kind of performance they can expect, just like you said, after attending your talk or workshop.
Yeah, that's a great addition, actually. If you can also mention what's the problem that you might solve for your listeners, for your audience, that's always great. If you can maybe even point out what level of audience you have in mind with your talk, and how could your talk help them to become better at a certain thing. Yeah, that's great.
Right. And now that we have learned what are some good things to include in the proposal itself, what are some specific don'ts that you should take care of when writing a CFP?
Well, the obvious one is proofread your own proposal, maybe double check with a friend or a colleague, get a second opinion, and just make sure there's no obvious issues like spelling mistakes or unfinished sentences or something. Because what we're looking for is someone we can trust to be put on our stage for 30, 40 minutes and speak to 800 or 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And if a person doesn't show any care or real interest in the talk proposal, then we have to assume that they will not really care about our stage and preparing a good talk for an audience that is expecting something great on stage. So just take care. And the same is true for the topic. Like, sometimes we receive talk proposals that sound like they were written for a different conference.
Right.
And while it's totally fine to reuse a talk proposal for a good talk you've prepared and submit it to many conferences, you should at least double check that it matches the topic of the conference. If we receive a React talk at CSSconf, then I just have to assume the person just clicked without really reading who they are applying to.
Right.
I guess these are kind of obvious, like take care to having a mistake-free proposal, don't submit something off topic. And maybe the third thing that when I reviewed is like would immediately disqualify you. Be respectful of other languages, other approaches, and avoid stuff like bashing other developers or other languages, other communities, because we're very interested in your approach, but we're not interested in why you think others are dumb. That's not the attitude we want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously being offensive or inappropriate in your language, like we just expect professional behavior, respectful behavior, and in general, a collaborative manner when talking about technical topics. That's really important to us.
Right. And yeah, you should not write your talk titles like why Preact sucks, like I just said in our rapid fire.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of your titles were really funny because they reflected on that maybe it's more like a thing that happens to less experienced speakers. And the assumption is that something provocative might stick out or might get people's attention. And that's correct, but don't be provocative by bashing other people's work. That's just disrespectful. Like we're all working together to create a better web, right? And it doesn't help anyone if we disrespect others' work. That doesn't make your own work better. And that's what I want to hear. Like, what does your work do? Like, talk about that and don't disrespect others.
Yeah. And for those whose talks don't make it to the conference, would you recommend them to reach out to the organizers for feedback?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think if you receive a rejection email and you applied somewhere and it didn't work, I hope my explanation made clear that sometimes that's actually out of your control. And this maybe didn't happen because your proposal had a strong mistake, but just because it didn't fit in the combination or the topic of the conference, right?
Yeah.
So for that reason alone, so that you don't develop like the self-doubt, oh no, my proposals are really bad or something.
Yeah.
Just reach out to the conference organizers and ideally you receive the feedback like, hey, your talk was actually great. We liked the proposal. It just didn't really fit this year. Or you submitted a great talk idea, but unfortunately the original author of the library you were going to talk about also submitted. So we had to invite them. So that might also happen, right? And so there might just be practical reasons that also give you some insight in how conferences work when they make their decisions. That could reassure you that your proposal was actually good. But also, of course, maybe you did make some obvious mistakes. And well, I was speaking from the perspective of CSSconf, right? So other conferences obviously have different criteria that I might not be aware of. So there's always something to learn. I totally recommend to reach out and just in a friendly, patient manner, because community organizers are usually super busy by the time they send out the rejections. So maybe it'll take some weeks, but I would ask for feedback and use the rejection as a learning opportunity.
That's a really good advice. All right. Before we wrap up, are we missing something? Any other piece of advice you'd like to offer to our listeners?
Well, I guess keep applying. Like conferences can be such an amazing experience. And if you have something worth sharing that you like to share with your audience, keep trying, apply to conferences. And good luck with that. I really look forward to seeing many of you on stage.
Thanks, Kristina, for those amazing words. And thank you for joining us as our guest today. This has been absolutely amazing.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you all for listening to this episode of Technically True. I'm at @Tane1337 on Twitter, and I would love to know what you'd like to listen in the next episode. Until then, auf Wiedersehen. You have been listening to Technically True, a podcast about public speaking, developer relations, and technology, hosted and produced by Tane1337.